see Jean Lambert. Perhaps you have a camera and can switch it on. So congratulations, 2-0. So this is what it really matters. For the German Greens, actually, it's an excellent result because the less national sentiment, the better for us, the greater the disappointment, and the better the chances that things really have to change. So if not even the internet works and it spreads to football, then things get really serious in Germany. So therefore, that is quite good news. And I congratulate you, Jean. I'm sure you are a great football fan, as I got to know you. Anyway, perhaps I'm totally mistaken. So, but she disappeared. She's probably now in the pub.
She's
Anyway,
No, I'm here and yes,
ah,
just keeping an eye on the football and maybe a bit of Federer as well. So, we have to have some joy in the UK. There's not much.
oh, okay, yeah, well, good. Anyway, so when it comes to the program, as it was set by Ma, basically the program has one Europe chapter actually, which only deals with institutional issues, while all the policy issues are mainstreamed into the different policy areas, and therefore it makes also not so much sense to list them now all. Therefore, I will only concentrate on two major issues. First, on the institutional side, we repeat what we have already set in our basic program, which is in German political parties, they have election programs and basic programs which have a bit longer reach, normally something about 20 years. And in this one, we are um, pleading for transforming the European Union in a federal European Republic, and which is a visionary idea which we repeat here as well. But in this program, which is seen for the next 4 years, we make more moderate demands. In particular, we are asking that majority voting in the Council should be replaced in all policy domains unanimity in the Council should be replaced by majority voting in all policy domains with co-decision of the European Parliament. This is, of course, with a view to the ongoing conference on the future of Europe. We also ask for stronger citizens' participation and the strengthening of local communities and regions in the European integration. We also ask for the fundamental rights to be made enforceable before law on the European level, which is not the case when it comes to, in particular, to the social rights. As you know, fundamental rights in Europe are binding only the European institutions. They do not bind the member states. And therefore, this would be a major step forward. So these are some of the central ideas in the institutional part, which may also interest many, that beyond that, we are saying we would like to have a stronger investment budget for the Union as a whole, financed or either on new commonly issued debt and or refinanced by common taxation. And this common investment budget should go into financing European public goods such as the Green Deal. And this is, of course, a clear signal to break with the logic of austerity. It's basically the idea to continue what we've been doing with the recovery fund after Corona, but with other main objectives, and have a more permanent level of common investment, finance and solidarity in the EU. So therefore, it is a very pro-European program. It is seen as such in Germany, and therefore we offer a real alternative to the logic that in Germany, basically, except of the extreme right, everybody is in favor of Europe as long as it doesn't cost anything. And that is a unique selling point, I would say, for us, where we are more courageous. We are a bit closer to the Social Democrats here, but it's a clearly pro-European statement. I have to say, we also translated large parts of the text into English before it was adopted, and asked the EGP community and also the group in the European Parliament for changes. We received very few, I have to say, but at least we made the offer, and we are looking forward to similar initiatives by all other EGP parties. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Sven. And now I would open the floor for the attendees. You can channel your questions through the Q&A tab, and I will be sharing. So if you would be feel free to put up your questions. Here you have now Jamila and Sven. It's probably a unique opportunity that we're going to have from now until the elections happens, because I'm sure they're going to be fully campaigning and fully concentrated on convincing the German citizens to vote for the Greens. So I don't think that they're going to have a lot of time for explaining the program around Europe. I don't see any questions, but maybe I have one here. I mean, Jamila, you gave a bit of an overview about the German Greens programs. I was researching a bit, and I see that the CDU program is called the Program for Stability and Renewal, Together for a Modern Germany. And the SPD program is called the Progress for the Future, for Germany, for you, what we stand for, what motivates us, what we are headed for. I mean, tell us how the German Greens are planning to convince the general progressive mind, not so much like green-minded, but the general progressive mind that might every now and then vote for SPD or maybe even CDU to vote for the Greens as the convincing force that is going to be able to govern this country towards a more prosperous future.
Yeah, I mean, I think there are 3 points relevant for us. I think the first point is that we are seen as the main conqueror of the conservatives, and this is what we have achieved so far. But of course, we want to extend that profile as a party to be like the ones that are taking the hegemony of the conservatives into question. And that's what's going on so far, that we have like the main debate is whether the conservatives are governing or the Greens, that we have like the black versus green game going on in that election campaign. So we can somehow or we try to be like the leading progressive party in that election campaign, and I think so far it has been successful. But of course, we need to instantly talk to our alliance partners in civil society, but also the young climate movement and other people that are like asking for a progressive change, and that they also defend us against the conservative attacks, for example, and somehow create this movement or also momentum that we have in 2019, where we had a big need or ask for change in society, and we were the ones that were delivering that need and giving the right answers to that need. That's why we like the second point is not only we try to have this to be the main opponent against the CDU, but we also have to be alliance with others from civil society. And I think this third point, which is very important, that we show that our ecological agenda goes in line with the social agenda. And we had in Germany in the last years, we have had a discourse that was always trying to play it against each other. So that also the Social Democrats were somehow saying, oh, climate protection is something that you need to have money for, and that the poor people will pay for it, and so on. And right now we are talking also to the left parties that we need to make sure together that this old division is not a story that the conservatives can use for their election campaign against all of us, you know. This is what we are working on. But I think after the last debate on the CO2 price, which was also instrumentalized by the Social Democrats and also the left party to play out it against each other, they saw that the conservatives were profiting from it. And I think now it has been, I hope that the better and also maybe more committed parts of the left parties are also stopping this campaigning. I think it's getting better now, but we will see if that is something that we will achieve in that election campaign, but I really hope.
Okay, here's the, well, I'm collecting now many questions. I have the first one, and then maybe the two of you can comment. Simon Gregory asked, would you prefer a CDU Greens or a Green SPD-FDP coalition? That's the first question. So do you want to comment on this?
This is the usual sort of questions, but look, we prefer a Green majority. If we can't get a Green majority, I think it's pretty safe to say that we can make Annalena Chancellor. We will make it with whatever majority we can get. So beyond that, the big question is another one. The question is, will the socialists ever allow that another progressive party will be the chancellor? And will the liberals, which have an electorate right of CDU-CSU, ever allow a Green to become chancellor with their votes? So this is the question, because there's a big debate whether or not CDU, SPD, and liberals, so socialists, Christian Democrats, and liberals would build a coalition against the Greens. And therefore, this choice there may not be the real choice. However, if Greens win the elections, it would not be easy to do it, because everybody will be saying Greens doubled their votes and now you don't let them into government. So they will look pretty stupid. So therefore, this will be a really interesting moment. However, I would like to say, in order to get there, complementing to what Jamila said, it's clear Annalena is the candidate for change. The socialist chancellor is not standing up for change, because he has been there forever and is boring as a German, dull, gray, and so on. Yeah. So second, Laschet has also been there for ages. So already their personality doesn't stand for change. So it's very clear, if you want to vote change, there is no more progressive vote this time. Also, the left party looks really old in comparison to Annalena. I think that's pretty clear. And second, so in order to win, we have to mobilize those people who are closer to us. And for this, it's crucial to have a climate mobilization moment again, because this is the key reason to vote for us. In order to mobilize those which may vote Green or may not vote at all, or will consider protest votes for small parties and so on. Lastly, there are bigger chunks of voters tending between Green and Christian Democrat, Green and Socialist. These are two, and in fact, because we were always speaking about progressives, the German Greens are clearly a progressive party, but we are not only appealing to progressive voters. And in this respect, there was one question, how we deal with the left-right thing. Of course, we are a center-left party, but we do not sail under the flag of leftism. We sail under the green flag. And with this, we can also appeal to certain voters which vote for us, for instance, because they want to preserve nature, preserve honor in politics, or they want to preserve even the sustainable competitiveness of German industry. So there are also reasons which are not leftist reasons to vote for the Greens. And that is very important to us. And I think our strength comes from not only appealing to progressive voters. I'm saying this with a smile to Spain.
Thank you very much, Sven. Let me now address Jamila. Jamila, Eva No Roca is asking, what are your specific solutions or proposals for refugees?
Yeah, as I mentioned earlier, very briefly, we want that there is a new dynamic for a solution and a robust common asylum system in Europe, because we think that Europe has been very much under attack, and also attacks its own values every day by not relying on the refugee laws that Europe has given itself, and also, of course, the human rights values that the European Union is based on. And that is why we want to have more efforts of the federal government of Germany to take refugees that are coming in the states in the on the borders of the European Union to Germany, in order to make sure that the asylum procedures can be done in other countries like Germany, and that the countries like Greece or Croatia, Italy and Spain get relieved a little bit, and do not have to take that as a burden, but not meaning it disrespectfully, to make all that procedures by themselves. And we hope that with this dynamic, with rising and the ambition in Germany, we can create like a new dynamic for making change happen, also by creating a robust system, and also helping the European Union that is not getting blackmailed again by other states like Turkey or Morocco. Because we think that a lot has to do with an inability to really think about the solutions that we can afford. I mean, we have only in Germany, we have over 200 municipalities who want to take refugees, but the government doesn't allow that. And we want to ensure that those help of the municipality can be used in order also to take the pressure from the states at the borders of the European Union.
Good. It's incredible how powerful municipalities and like cities can be when they want. I remember when I was working back in the Barcelona, when we were talking about the Agenda 21, do you remember? Climate action driven through the local level. It was incredible how strong they were in the COP. Okay, I have two questions for Sven. They're very specific. And one is from Ralph Casar and says, as regard taxation, are there any proposals on digital taxes and taxes on multinationals, and how these taxes are distributed amongst EU member states or used by the EU? That's one question. And the other one is, if you could make a comment on a possible change on the German debt brake and future direction of public investments. That's from Elias Papadeouros. So could you maybe comment on these two issues, Sven?
So first, greetings to Malta, Ralph. I wish you all the best. I know it's difficult for Greens in Malta. And when it comes to corporate taxation, our proposal since a long time is the same. For the multinationals, there should be a clear, should be a clear rule according to a formula how to distribute the taxation rights. That means that according, not as today, according to creative bookkeeping, which is also creating a lot of work for tax consultants and the like, we should have a formula apportionment of the profits and who has in the European Union which share of the profit to be taxed. So, and this formula, the Commission has made a proposal which is called the Common Consolidated Corporate Tax Base, which basically looks at turnover, employment, and a few other figures, and then you divide the cake rather than competing for the cake. And that is the idea Greens should, I think, and have in the European Parliament always supported, and German Greens as well. And then, of course, the question is which tax rate is applied on this, on your piece of cake. Once the competition over the cake is ending, the size of the tax rate has never been, for me, the same importance for European harmonization. However, as you know, there will be a globally agreed minimum tax rate of at least 15%, which is much more than what Malta at the moment charges, because in reality, for multinationals, it's often less than 5%. As you know very well, and I hope that your finance minister will be in prison soon, but I can't believe it. Anyway, that's only a side joke, because Mr. Scicluna, well, I stop my remarks here. Lastly, with the debt break, I have to say I'm really proud of my party, because that was not easy. And you know, Germans, in German, debt is the same word. Yeah, exactly. But he is still to be put in prison. I heard about it. He was rewarded as finance minister with becoming central bank governor. It's really funny. Anyway, I'll stop here. I recommend everyone to visit Malta at some point. If you want to see corruption of socialists at work, you are well invited to Malta. It's yeah, you can see it all on a very small place. Anyway, I'll stop here. So the point is, when it comes to the debt break, so in German, debt and guilt is the same word, which causes a lot of confusion. So in public debates, and but the German Greens have clearly said, and we will do what we can in order not to rebalance budgets too quickly, but rather reform the constitutional debt break in order to allow future investment, arguing that the lack of public investment creates actually the larger debt than the financial debt. And you know, in Germany, public debt has a negative interest rate, like in many other EU countries. If you factor in inflation, it's even getting more negative. So therefore, we are trying to achieve this, and we will do what we can in order to bring up the investment rate in Germany, which is also helpful for the union economy as a whole, because many countries are strongly interrelated with the German economy. So it will help or many other countries as well if we pursue these policies. And what is really a miracle is now that many mainstream economists, including the top economists of the German Employers Federation, even agrees with us. So to me, it's a miracle, because German economists normally believe the state is a bastard, but it has changed. And perhaps everybody is annoyed because there's no internet, even in big cities, but yeah, good news. And so I hope I answered that. Was this for Greece?
Yes.
Yes, okay.
Last one. And let's go now to Jamila. I mean, I'm sure you're all like full-time campaigning and very concentrated, but I'm sure there also has been some exchanges about what could happen afterwards. Here, Siriana from Finland is asking, what are the issues you won't compromise on when negotiating with other parties? I mean, the things most important that to you that can make or break you joining the government. And Siriana is also talking from a party that is in government, so probably want to hear some tips of how would you do it, or if you have been commenting on this.
Yeah, I mean, we do not have a list with red lines or something, because we think that it's more the better strategy, I think, is to raise now the points that are very important for us in order to get public support by raising that topic in the public debate, and afterwards having many people that also demand it from the new government, so that we have like a frame that demands for progressive changes in several topics, so that whoever will be in a coalition negotiation with us or with other parties, I mean, we don't know yet how it will end, that this frame is like somehow built, so that also conservatives cannot drop several points that are very important to the society. So I think that it's clear that we have to stick to the climate goals and to have a clear plan for reaching climate neutrality, and also exiting the coal industry by latest by 2030. For us, it's also very important to have a minimum, not minimum wage, but like, how do you call it, the insurance for people who are jobless, to increase the money that they get. And if that's not increased, I mean, we won't have our promise fulfilled, that we want to have a more social cohesion in society. And that's also a very important point for us. And of course, also the things that Sven has chosen, that we need a complete different approach concerning our economy and also our investment politics. Because if we do not open up for new investments, we cannot fulfill our promise to have solutions for the questions that are on the top of agenda now, and to make our society and also our economy climate neutral. And this is also a contradiction that the conservatives have. They say that they do not want to raise taxes, but they do also not want to have more public debts. And they also want to reduce the taxes for the rich people. And they also want to invest. So that is completely illogical. And I think that we cannot sign a coalition contract with such a contradictory strategy. So also, if we would be in the situation that we would have to govern with the conservatives, I think it's pretty clear that they would have to move there in order that we can get together in some points. And I think that this will also be the main political fight now. But as Sven has said, we see that the hegemonia in that extent is changing, because there's a progressive part of the German industry now who realizes that it's a complete disaster to rely on that old-fashioned way of thinking about state and economy and so on. And of course, there are also people that are like accusing us of being DDR socialists that want to get rid of every freedom and so on. But there is also a progressive part of industry that is aligning to us. And I think that we could also make some points there. And I really hope that, because it, of course, will also change the way the European Union can stick together and also raise some common investments and to get climate neutral. And I think that this would be a very crucial point also for us in negotiations.
Thank you. Sven, Rihanna Johnston from the EGP climate campaigner is saying, Sven spoke on mobilizing those who are close to the Greens by using a climate moment. How can we, as the European level, as well as in other national Green parties, help create or support such a climate mobilization on the narrative of the climate verhaal?
Well, you could pray to God to give us a very warm summer. No, seriously, that is probably the most helpful. Anyway, this is of course utter nonsense, but but in reality, probably it's not so far away from the truth, because the 2 last summers, 3 summers actually, were very dry in Germany, and we had a lot of dying forests. And that is something which touches many Germans deeply. So we have a lot of mythology about the German forest, and it touches Germans very deeply if our forests are not good. So actually, the growth of the Greens in the 1980s was strongly related to a term which we even exported to English, the Waldsterben. So the dying of forests. So beyond that, it's of course very important to keep the alliance with the climate movement. So it was very important that also, against some resistance internally, we had a quite clear language on bringing Germany to a 1.5-degree pathway. And also we have quite strong language, for instance, on cars. So we are the only party calling so clearly for phase out of the combustion engine for new cars after 2030. So all this is, for German standards, comparably radical. So we are not calling everybody to become vegans, but it is already pretty stark. So it's important to keep the alliance, to help the climate movement, making that a climate election. And we are doing what we can with civil society, but I have to say also with progressive business to make that going. So many were confused by the strong words of support of the former boss of Siemens in favor of the Greens. Don't be shocked, Ma. So we had a video which has been really probably the strongest statement we had on our party conference, I have to say, was the one by the former boss of Siemens. And I think he didn't bribe any of us this time. So he did this in the past. But this time he didn't give any corruption. And we wouldn't pay him for it. So he did it himself.
Yeah, I think that many of the people that are here probably were following part of the Congress of the Germans. And it's not the first time that you have very big people from industries in your Congress, if I'm not mistaken.
Well, the boss of Greens, but the difference was we had many visitors. But this guy was really saying vote Green. And this we never had. So we had already the boss of Mercedes and so on, yeah. But they were always showing only, yeah, the Greens are now mature. But this time, Kaiser said, basically, in order to rescue German industry, vote Green. And that is very important in a German context. Very important.
And it makes sense also to explain and understand the latest polling. Yeah, you wouldn't be at 20% or close to 20, or if you wouldn't have such a wider support from very different, sectors of the society. So that's also it goes in the line. Yeah. I have one question for you, Jamila, that comes from Denmark. And Jesper is saying, in Denmark, the Groenen are getting some bad press because of some negative stories about Anna-Lena. Does the level of negative campaigning come as a surprise for you? Or is it relatively normal in Germany, in the German campaign? And what do you expect?
Yeah, I mean, we had the expectation that this election campaign would become very dirty. I mean, because there are lots of also parts of the regressive industry, but also, of course, many conservatives and until the right wingers, they have absolutely no interest that the German Greens get into the government, and they are like doing everything that's in their force to avoid that situation will happen. I mean, I think it's also a conflict of interest, of course, because the fossil part of industry, I mean, they of course are in favor of a conservative government, and we have some absurd campaigns. I mean, we had, like, for example, an alliance for new social market economy. That's their name, but they are, like, in fact, they are the regressive part of the German industry, and they made a huge campaign. I think it was costing about millions of euros, where they posted a picture of Annalena Baerbock with like a photo collage that showed her as being Moses with the 10 objections, and that was the wrong vocabulary.
Prohibitions, yeah.
Prohibitions, yeah, that's the right vocabulary. Thank you. It was ridiculous, and I think that also causes a little bit effects of solidarity also by the middle of society, who was saying, okay, what's going on here? And of course, I mean, maybe, yeah, there were also mistakes that were made by us, like, for example, some irregularities in the CV, for example. But the strategy of some parts of the conservatives is like smudging the water, blowing up little mistakes of the progressive, in order to get the message everyone is corrupt anyhow, and putting it at the same stage like their like high level corruption scandals, and this is a strategy to hide their own mistakes and their own irregularities and levels of corruption. And I think that we have to make that very clear, what is the strategy behind this, and that this is also a conflict of interest, because there's a part of the conservatives who only want to do the politics for a little part of society, and they are putting all their money in this agenda. And this is why we have, like, every day there's a new irregularity, and this is like, the most things are peanuts, because I mean, if you have lots of money and try to dig in the dirt, you always find something. And now we try to be a little bit more like criticizing the strategy more from the meta level, in order to explain what's going on with this strategy, so that people are not putting it all in one pot and thinking, okay, everyone is corrupt now, because that also damages democracy a lot. And I'm a little bit frustrated also, because I think that so many conservatives have not reflected their own role in democracy and what they are damaging here. I think that we will face another attacks. But I think the good thing is that also a debate is starting, that this debate should be about the best ideas of the future, and not who is throwing so much dirt. This is not like the contest that we are in, and that the conservatives are also not really investing in creating good ideas, but only creating bad campaigning, and this will hopefully also damage them. And we have to also mobilize the solidarity in broader scales of society, who have also not an interest in that kind of election campaign. But you can see a few tendencies that we know from the United States and the election campaigns there, and this is also really scary, I think. But nothing new. And I think through social media and also the fear of the conservatives to lose their power, it's getting more intensive. And of course, yeah, it's a challenge, but I am sure that we will find good strategy to counter that and to stay positive and not losing track.
That's actually very true. I was shocked on how organized this photo of Annalena, like the Moses, and how it was everywhere in social media and in all the newspapers. And, you know, I was really like, wow. And I think that it's so big what is at stake that I'm sure that you're going to have such attacks. Yeah, probably the dirtiness has not risen its highest level. On that sense, we wish you all from Europe all the strength to, you know, keep it, because sometimes, you know, it's hard, yeah, when they go so hard on you. And but it's, you know, it's so big what is at stake that they're going to try to do as much as possible to impede the Greens for winning, because that would be for certain sectors a disaster. But anyway, look, Sven, I have a very, very specific question, and it comes from Belgium, and it says, how do you address the issue of raw material? Is it accepted or even acceptable that we will need our raw material use as well? Just electrification will not do. And he says, we need to reduce our raw material use. I mean, this is a very concrete question. I don't know if you want to maybe comment in general about it, or you want to answer specifically?
Well, obviously, there is a long chapter in the program on the circular economy, and that is, of course, the cradle to grave approach is extremely important in this regard. Also, there's, of course, a limited role to limiting the amount of material and goods used, so beyond circularity. And this is, of course, I would say, a sensitive issue. I share here now my own view, which is not the majority necessarily in the German Greens. So I think our adversaries have managed in a German context to limit our ability to speak openly about overconsumption. So generally, we are now basically part of those who are indicating we only have to change the energy base from fossil and nuclear to renewables, and the resource base from limited resources to renewable resources, but we can keep the material output. I personally don't believe this. I think we also need, as Greens, to have the ability to speak about the enough, and not only about doing the same differently. So this ethics of enough is not very popular with many, and it's seen in the green debate as moralistic. But I think for a sustainable economy, this is absolutely needed, also to speak about the limits of material consumption. Obviously, it's totally different whether you speak about the poor and the rich in this regard. And not everyone is over-consuming. But we have a significant part of the population which has very high material wishes. So for instance, Germans love to fly to Mallorca. Nobody from the Greens is daring to question this. So, so this is something where I think we have to find a discourse which allows us to speak again also about the enough. But this is my personal view. It's not part of our election strategy because it would deter voters. But I think for the Green movement as a whole, it's very important that we do not lose the power also to speak about that level of the transformation. So, but that is a very self-critical view where we are with the green discourse in Germany.
Thank you, Sven. It is indeed a brave move that I'm not sure if we are all ready to do. I mean, I don't see Greens in government speaking about this, and we are in many governments. So let's see how when we become more and more, let's say, consolidated, if we are, if we are brave enough maybe to jump into that camp. Let me go to a question, Jamila, also a specific one, and following the thread that Sven said, from Carlo from Italy. And he says, are you speaking specifically about reducing waste production, about no recyclable packaging production, about improved home composting and reduce food loss? And are you in the program also talking about agriculture? Biological agriculture, and how to improve composting plants to reduce chemical fertilization. Tell us a little bit about what do you say about agriculture in general in the program?
Yeah, of course, we have a chapter for agriculture, and I was just mentioning it shortly in the introduction. So thank you for giving the opportunity to make a few more points here. Of course, the main common challenge is to change the way that the money from the European gap is getting in the is being used in the European states and also the farms, because right now it's pushing the people that have much land and not the ones that are using it in a sustainable way. And this is a problem for the small farmers, because they have to grow bigger and bigger to survive, or they just don't survive. And of course, it's pushing for a very unsustainable usage of land. And that's why it's also a common approach of the Green Party family. Of course, we want to use that money from the European level in order to further the sustainable way of using the land, in order also to save biodiversity. But of course, we also have not only the investment point, we also have the point of banning several chemicals like glyphosate, for example, which is just a question of prohibition to get further here. We also want to ban imports from soy plantages that are destroying the rainforests. That is part of our trade policy. In order to save the Amazonas, for example. And we also want to get rid of mass production of animals and have better standards for keeping animals for milk and meat production. We also want to reduce the waste of transport, also for animal protection reasons, but also for CO2 emission reduction reasons. And I think these are our main approaches in the agriculture field. And of course, on a strategical level, we want to get more in dialogue with the farmers, because we have also to fight against many prejudices against green politics. And this is also a very important issue for us, to make that structural changes happening, and also showing that, in fact, many farmers would profit from a more sustainable way of agriculture, because the land would be protected that they need for the economy.
Thank you, Jamila. I think that this is a fight that is also like very actual, the actualité in the European Parliament, the CAP. Sven, let's go to the far right. Here, you being an MEP, you have access to the whole of the European spectrum, and unfortunately, you can witness how far right is damaging very often the European democracies. But here, Rodolfo from Spain is asking concretely about AfD. I mean, what is the role that AfD is playing in this campaign in Germany, and what are their main issues? And if I may, I would add, I mean, do you believe that the Greens are becoming the counter narrative to the far right, and that is one of the reasons of the success that slowly but steadily, we are gaining as an alternative to the citizens?
Well, look, in fact, there are no voters in Germany thinking about, should I vote Green or should I vote AfD? So basically, we do not compete for the same people. However, I think Greens had a very important function. And this function is that in a German context, for us, it is clear no democratic party can mess with the AfD. So the AfD is not an option to cooperate with. And the CDU tried, and also the liberals in a funny state like Thüringen, which is a small state in southeastern Germany, and also in Bavaria, where Jamila comes from, my sincere now I lost the word when I wanted to be frech. Anyway, so you were lucky. So she's from Bavaria, and in Bavaria there was a time when the CSU, so the Christian Democrats in Bavaria, tried to copy the discourse of AfD. And the Greens were very strongly holding against. And the result was that in the end, the Christian Democrats lost more votes to the Greens than they got back from AfD. So therefore, this idea to copy the AfD was stopped indirectly by the Greens, because so many people from the Christian Democrats hated so much the openness to a discourse from AfD that they voted Green instead. So therefore, we are not competing directly with the AfD, but we are stopping other democratic parties to cooperate with them. And this has had this Bavarian election was the starting point of a very positive development. So in fact, all other parties are signaling very clearly, we will do whatever you think, but we will not cooperate with AfD. There's no question anymore. And this was very important if you compared with other EU countries. Of course, German history helps here, but it was also a strategic move, also in particular by Greens to say very clearly, you become totally impossible if you cooperate with the AfD. So we are not trying to copy them. We are not competing with them. We are trying to show a different style of politics, and also to demonstrate that we have another vision for change. And we also have an offer for change. This may be similar, but our vision is very much different. And but unlike the extreme left, the green vision for change is still based on the basic fabric of German society. So the 20% we would not have got with a program which does not support the ecological and social market economy, the fundamental values in our constitution, the representative democracy. So German Greens today are not seen anymore as being outside of these common convictions of the Greens, to which of the German system, to which of course also the commitment to international law and European integration belongs. So this is which has allowed these 20% to emerge and to stabilize.
Very interesting. Jamila, I have a question from Zap from Croatia. I'm not sure if you were, I'm sure you're aware about the spectacular results that Možemo and the coalition got in Zagreb. Zap is saying that this strategy of all the parties are the same is used also very much by the conservatives in Croatia, that they are like disencouraging progressive voters to vote. Yeah. He's saying, what are you doing to motivate voters, to mobilize voters? And he says something that is not always true. I presume higher turnout works for Greens, but yeah, I mean, only recently in the last French elections that happened last weekend, the abstention rate was incredibly high and terribly bad. But I mean, you could see a tendency for the Greens, for the French Greens, of, you know, gaining a bit of more of a space. So it's not always true that that a high turnout works for progressive forces or for the Greens. Or do you disagree?
Yeah, hello, Zap, and congratulations again also from this side here. I've visited you a few years ago, and I'm very happy to see how that developed in Zagreb. Really impressive. Yeah, I think that it's a very I mean, it's a strategic goal, of course, for us, because it's from a democratic approach. It's a very important thing that people go to vote and raise their voices. And that is also an approach that we perform at the campaign. I think for us, it's very important to show that we have this crucial momentum in front of us, that we have few years to get under control the climate crisis. And what we do now in this election campaign is somehow settling what will be the case in the next decades. And that we promise the people that if they vote for Greens, that we will do our best to fulfill a climate neutral and good future with the best that we can supply for everyone. Yeah, and that we try to get the contradictions that are also connected with that question under control, because we have a very democratic way of doing politics and also including the people in our discourses. And maybe to answer also the question of Benedetta, because it's a little bit connected to that. Yeah, we had mechanisms to involve civil society and also other stakeholders that we did, for example, in the huge and large process of our basic program that we did. We had roundtables of several parts of society, and also showed that we would discuss about the contradictions that were also like on our way to reach our goals that we have for our ways. And this is, I think, something that also works to empower people to get involved into politics. And I think this is also a very important message for us that we also have with our campaigning claim, which says bereit, weil ihr es seid, which means in English, ready because you are. And I think this is also a very important meta approach, that we say we do not want to know everything better. We want to empower you to raise your voices in order to get a good future. And this is, I think, also an approach that gets hopefully more people to vote. And I expect that there could be also a higher turnout, because it's a very, I mentioned it in the first input, it's a very crucial time, because the Merkel era is ending, and all the Spitzenkandidaten are, every week they are at a panel and everyone is talking about the election campaign. Also, it's a little bit Corona still in the mind of the people. And I think now it's like the decision is made, if after Corona there will be a need and also a cheering for making things different, or it will be like a fatigue and the people will get sleepy. And we of course try to go for the first possibility and to empower the people to get involved. And I mean that also Annalena and Robert are driving through the whole country and making town hall meetings and meeting all the people. So yeah, we hope that we can get a good mood and also a momentum created in that summer. And also like a positive mood in society, that it's worth to go to vote, and that democracy is capable of changing things, and that we have to do that. And yeah, that's what we are trying to do, so that the higher turnouts will also turn out green in the end.
Good. We are ready because you are. That's far from certain attitudes that we sometimes as Greens have, yeah, like, you know, these attitudes that we know what it's good for you, we are telling you where you should go or like what you should do. And then maybe that brings me to the next question to Sven, and it's not so much about the attitude, but going back to, you know, you were saying, because we have the program that we have and we, you know, appeal to certain issues is the reason why we are having this 20%. So because we are like, you know, basing our program also in very common sense in the German society. But here, Xenophon Zizis is asking us, how do you communicate about the difficult, and important socio-ecological truths? And again, I go back to the attitude of we Greens know what this earth or that society means. Communicating like this is not always the best way, but yeah, he's putting this example of do you support the rapid imposition of a green tax of 12 cents liter of oil and lose directly 1/4 of your possible voters? Or, I mean, what's the way of communicating on this difficult truth that we strongly, are convinced, but without imposing it?
Well, first of all, I think it's important if one wants to win a significant part of the votes, the greening is at the core, but at the same time, it is absolutely crucial to claim at the same time economic interests and social redistribution and social security. So for us, it's really these three messages at the same time. We don't preach only green. We try really to send important messages in policy areas where our competence is not equally supported. So Greens have uncontestably in Germany the highest competence on climate change, environment, nature. But we are trying all we can in order to claim at the same time that we stand for sustainable industry, sustainable jobs, as well as more social equality and social stability. So I think it's very important as Greens to connect our greening agenda with economic interests and social stability. Second, we try to portray this change as a positive dynamic, not as something of imposition of limits, but as a positive dynamic. I told you before already what the downside to this strategy is, that we may lose any ability to speak about limits. However, for good strategic reasons, we try to tell a story of positive change. And lastly, of course, you cannot choose all the time the spin. So we had already a campaign against Greens that we want to increase the price of fuel at the stations by 16 cents. So this was a huge populist debate. Greens want to increase by 16 cents a liter the price. Well, also the funny thing was that the big coalition of socialists and Christian Democrats had already decided to increase it themselves by 15 cents. So the whole difference was 1 cent. And second, the same parties which in a populist way said, Greens are not concerned about the social needs of people with small incomes and their difficulty to fill the tanks of their cars. That, of course, doing this for a quick headline has cost them a lot of credibility in the climate change debate. And as since a long time, climate change is seen as the most important challenge in Germany, whether they, with this short-term bet for a populist headline, they will really win in a German context, we will see. I'm quite optimistic that these campaigns, they obviously help to mobilize their own voters, but they also help to mobilize everybody who is in favor of tackling seriously climate change to vote in favor of us.
Let's see. I really hope so. Yeah, well, it looks like it is, yeah, as you were saying. So let's see in September, but you're probably right. Let me go to also to the field of energy, Jamila, and I have like here 2 questions. One is, could you speak a bit about Nord Stream and natural gas? Of course, this is a big topic, at least at the European level. Not sure if in Germany is having the same impact, but maybe could you comment? And then also, Nicola from Ragnon, from Pew Democrazia, is asking us, are you talking about the new hydrogen-based technologies? And if so, yeah, are you talking, so such as hydrogen heaters for the home, or do they guarantee electricity, hot water? I mean, is there any reference towards the hydrogen-based technologies in the program?
Yeah, thank you for those questions. First of all, to come to Nord Stream 2, yeah, we have a little passage to that project also in our program, because it has been a big debate from the energy political point of view, but also from the foreign political point of view, because of course that project also gets Putin and also the oligarchy system of Putin richer and richer, and we tend to fail our climate goals even more if we finish that project, and also stop other investments that are really needed for renewable energies to be less financed by the public sector. So our position is that we do not finish that infrastructure program. But in fact, the Social Democrats and the Conservatives are really sticking on their plan. So yeah, we have to see where that leads us. But yeah, it's a topic, and we are against that project also because the European implication, I mean, that's also very it's a project that the German government did without taking the interest of other European countries in consideration. And that is also something that we always criticized towards our government concerning Nord Stream 2. And to the second question, with our energy strategy and hydrogen strategy, yeah, it's also a topic in our program. We said that we need green hydrogen, and also that we have to have alliances to produce and also to trade with it. But for us, of course, it's very important that we do not exploit, for example, countries in the south of the world to import and export hydrogen on their back, and also hurting human rights issues. And of course, we also said that it's always very important for us to get the energy supply of the region where it's produced, also in the center of our alliance projects. And I think what's also very important is that we do not underestimate the transport costs and also the CO2 emissions that are coming with this transport issues related to hydrogen strategy. So we prefer in a European trade of hydrogen, and sticking to the common rules that we also have in our European market.
Thank you. Maybe let's go for the last question, because I don't think we're going to have more time, but we do have a direct question to Sven, and that comes from Pasqualino Allegro from Zero Waste. And because you were answering about the raw materials questions, he says, are you therefore in favor of pushing and leading the whole EU towards zero waste? And maybe I just also come with the last question in this sense. It's not so much related, but he says to stem the drift of party representation, participatory decision-making approaches from below should be implemented so as to make all EU citizens more interested, collaborative, and therefore responsible. And he says, do you agree? Do you agree on that?
Well, in the manifesto, there is a whole section, the end of waste, and it says clearly our objective is zero waste. So it's even said in English, only to prove you that we are on the good side. So we share the same vision. Whether this leads very quickly to zero waste is another question, but we share the same objective.
Good. Do you want to comment about empowering or strengthening the channels for participation for decision making to citizens. I mean, you obviously do agree, but is there any comment on the electoral manifesto about how to strengthen or to empower citizens in participating in our democracy?
Well, there is a very nice epilogue talking about the way how we would govern, and saying this would, and promising this would be done in a much more participatory way. And there's also discourse about a strong participation approach in general. However, the German Greens recently took a vote on the question whether we still support instruments of direct democracy on the federal level. In this vote, we supported the idea of citizens' assemblies with so what is called in German Bürgerrat, but there was a majority at the party conference against binding referendums on the federal level, and there's even not anymore a support for a citizens' initiative on the German level. And I think it's true that Jamila and myself, even if we come from the same party wing, were on two different sides of the debate. So I'm still in favor of direct democracy in this sense, including referenda as well as citizens' initiatives, which then force the parliament to consider a certain suggestion, while on the other side, there are many in the party which have seen the votes in the UK, in Switzerland, the populism rising, and because of this turned away from this foundational objectives, not objectives, but methods of participation. And well, and the minority to which I belong, we have now set up our own network in order to regain the majority against some others in the party.
Good. Thank you very much for these comments. And I think that I mean, these nice remarks and about democracy are a good moment, you know, to close up this session. By the way, this is something so nice about the German Greens, that it's a party so big with a lot of variety inside that, you know, manage to always keep together and, you know, put all the strength when convenient together. So that's one of the marvelous things about the German Greens. But thank you very much, Jamila and Sven. However, the legislation on the direct democracy participation evolves in Germany, I'm sure that if and when the Greens are in government, there will be a difference on how we govern. And I'm very much looking forward to how this evolves. I think that on behalf of all the participants, I can wish you a lot of strength, best of luck on this. I can also say that the European Greens are here to support you in whatever you believe we can be useful. And yeah, and really thank you very much for taking the time and for explaining, for those nice remarks on the electoral program. And I wish you the best, the two of you, and looking forward to what's the outcome of this endeavor. So thank you very much to both of you.
Yeah, thank you for inviting us. And one last answer to a question that I think was asked in the chat. Yes, we are going to translate our whole party program in English, and we will be sending it to you, of course, that you can also take a look by yourself. And we are also translating shorter versions also in other languages. And if you want to have other versions of translation, you can contact my office and get also a short version of our program in another language than English. And of course, we cannot do every language, but a few at least. So just contact us for that. And thanks again for the nice meeting this evening and your support.
Thank
Bye-bye.
you both. Take care.